Chapter 12. The half-frozen, stranded time travelers kept pace with the Indian scientist's temporal echo. Saber noticed that Mr. Blue occupied himself with whistling and occasionally viewing the gloomy, icy underground surroundings. The time agent removed the 3D cardboard novelty glasses from her face. Still, unused to watching Dolka simply vanish. Eventually, they came to a large inner chamber, a massive control hub. In the center was a large rectangular object with odd lights flashing occasionally. Saber grinned. "Oh, wow. Where did you dig up this beast?" Mr. Blue leaned in to take a closer look. "Are you serious? With the tapes and—" His voice trailed off as he absently spun circles in the air with his index finger. He was mimicking the movement of the tape reels on this computer. This absolutely antiquated 1980s tape reel computer. "State-of-the-art facility here," Saber mentioned ruefully. "My wife will be here soon," Dolka offered. The Time Lord wiped his cobalt suit free of dust and peered at Saber. "Lots of power in there, love." "Too much machine for you?" The time agent grinned briefly. "I suppose the engineers who built it would have been concerned with refresh rates as well, for whatever reason." Traveler took off his glasses, and absently, Saber followed suit. He peered around, noticing the silence. Eventually, his gaze settling on Saber. "Why would you suppose Dolka stops interacting with us whenever we do not wear these perception filters?" The stranger in blue held up his 3D glasses. Saber inspected hers, then answered. "Since we're time sensitives, travelers, and since you are a Time Lord, we can choose whichever timeline we wish to interact with. Dolka just happened to be closest." Mr. Blue didn't seem satisfied, shaking his head as he circled the room with his hands in his pockets. "We don't have enough information yet." She looked up as the unpredictable Time Lord climbed a ladder to a second-story railing. He put back on the 3D glasses. "So, your theory is that we can simply decide whom we choose to interact with? We want to interact with Dolka and her wife? We can. Or whomever else." He trailed off as he typed into another terminal, which also appeared the height of 80s Earth technology. "It's all—" The attractive and ancient time agent looked around in her 3D shades, attempting to differentiate her temporal surroundings. "Dimensionally wobbly." "Dimensionally wobbly?" Mr. Blue looked disgusted. "Timey-wimey?" "Timey what?" The irritated Time Lord demanded as he stood bolt upright. Both Time Agent and Time Lord replaced their gaudy spectacles. "You would think," the polite Indian physicist spoke softly, "that the two of you would be interested in speaking with us." Another attractive woman, presumably her wife, sidled to her. "You come from where exactly?" The stranger in blue jumped over the rails and landed with a loud slam onto the steel floor near them. "We've been here for a couple of weeks, as guests of the Marquis, extrapolating theorem on temporal energy cascades." "You still getting nothing?" Mr. Blue seemingly ignored the explanation, looking up at Saber as he typed on his trusty watch. She affirmed this as her psychic glass was still just a piece of glass, with grimy thumbprints. "And if we want to divert our attention to, say—" Mr. Blue typed on the gigantic old beast of a computer tower in the center of the room. Probably an antiquated database or server of some kind. Then nodded as he pressed buttons on his wrist. "Say Mark Hogan from 2067 St. Louis." The scientist disappeared before them, replaced partially with slivers of a young man, wandering around what appeared to be a crappy hotel room. And yet, there were still traces of immense circular lab flittering around them. In the center was the mammoth server node, slightly cracking with amber snakes of electricity. He can't see us, Saber interpreted quickly. I'm guessing unless we choose otherwise? The Time Lord in the perfect cobalt suit childishly held up 2 thumbs with a grin. Bigger questions? He asked as he walked around the giant old tower in the control room. Mark Hogan from 2067. The scientist from 2567. We're in 2667 currently. Mr. Blue swirled one finger in the circle. And Saber stepped to the tower, adjusting her dimensional cardboard spectacles as she pressed buttons and looked around the bridge, or whatever it was. 2167, the Chestervale family. Saber uttered, as around her, indeed images, slivers of the Chestervales idly relaxing at home, mixed with images of Mark Hogan in his hotel room. The Time Lord stepped slowly away, nodding, slowly, trying to piece together why they were really here. 2267, the Williams family. Saber looked over to see another temporally and dimensionally misplaced group of bland, middle-class people appear. 2367, the Rothlanders. 2467, the Jones. 2567, the Dorcas, Mr. Blue finished for her. So, all these people, all these different temporal lines are converging here, exactly a century apart. Saber tapped her upper lip with her index finger. In every instance. Right. The time agent began typing on the huge tower once more. And it goes back, too. Mr. Blue completed the list. 1967, the Rona Koronova and Lancelot Vladimir. Paranormal investigators from New York. Why are they here? Lord Tagua and family from 1867, Edo Provenance, Japan. Why, and of course... Saber looked at the terminal screen, her head in disbelief. 1767, from France. She put on her glasses and pressed a single button. Lady J. Sylvia Esquire III, Northern Italian Duchess. Right. Mr. Blue stared at Jade, someone whom looked exactly like her at least, an ancestor, a distant connection to this moment, perhaps coincidence. The Time Lord sighed a heavy sigh. If only he believed in them. Why? Why is she here? He was visibly hurt and angry, having to see Jade's face again so soon. Saber removed the glasses for him. She did this because she knew he would not. She knew he would stand and stare at what he considered to be his ultimate failure, or at least a reminder of it. She knew he needed to focus on what was coming, not the past, and she understood, partially, why the future traveler had sent her here to his very young self. Because he needed her, now, for times like this, for times when he needed to move on, yet couldn't. Not by himself. This simple act seemed to awaken the Time Lord. He became animated, wildly running around the massive old beast of a computer, much like he would be doing aboard Purge, spinning circles around that blue porcelain time rotor and that old azure clock. Every time kidnapping has occurred in iterations of 100 years. Saber stated facts as she observed the maniac in navy flail about. Starting with Jade's ancestor, Lady Sylvia, in 1767. Mr. Blue was checking the terminal screen. Right. Then 1867, 1967, 2067. I can count, thank you. 2167, 2267, 2367, 2467, 2567. The stranger in blue continued and finished, unabated, then asked, How many is that total, Saber? How many different people or family structures were kidnapped? 9 total, from 1767 to 2567. The Time Lord replaced his dimensionally wobbly, timey-wimey 3D glasses and snapped his fingers, seeing Dolka appear. She seemed taken aback as she gripped her wife's hand. 2567? And what were you working on again? He inquired with a perceptibly impatient smile. Saber blurted it out, repeating what the project was before the elderly Indian doctor could respond. Temporal energy cascades. With 9 completed so far, 9 timelines, all hijacked, all exactly 1 century apart. Mr. Blue jumped up and down for some reason. The time agent watched him jump up and down several times, then stop. She took off her glasses, staring at him seriously. Well, okay then. So, starting in the distant past and leading up to now, that's 900 years of build-up. Something, but what? A good question. Great question. Excellent question. The Time Lord in the blue suit typed on the center terminal. Unfortunately, my young companion, you are missing something. Which is what? You forgot today. Present time of REM is 2667. That makes... Exactly 1,000 years! Saber shouted. Oh no, that's 1,000 years of raw temporal power. And if someone could harness that in a perpetual cascade... It'd be like almost having an Aya harmony. The stranger in blue closed his eyes, pondering something unfathomable. Saber saw a glimpse of something extremely foreign, extremely alien in that moment. This, Mr. Blue, truly was a Time Lord. With that bit of formality, that bit of extra brilliance or resourcefulness, which came from somewhere very, very far away. And it was something that neither she nor any of the other time agents would ever fully comprehend. Being genetically bred to travel in time, to protect it. Yet Saber had known all of this when she signed up to help the conniving question-mark-covered wizard in his Panama hat and blue box all those centuries ago. So, as I said, my young companion, you are missing something. I'm older than you, Saber corrected, then continued, and I would love to hear what it is you think I've missed. Counting from 1767 to 2667 is 1,000 years. The temporal cascade circuit, for whatever purpose it was created, is complete. What you have missed, Saber, are the catalysts needed for this time cascade to initiate. The people trapped here, kidnapped from their native temporal eras. Current date is 2667. Who were the last guests to arrive? Saber placed her hand over her mouth. Oh no. You and I. Saber, the last crucial parts needed to run this crude temporal battery. What you missed, what you haven't factored in, is us.